When it comes to teaching our dog to perform behaviors, people always want to understand, what do I need to do to get my dog to sit when I say sit? What do I need to do to get my dog to go into a down position when I tell them down? There is a process to do that. One of the most common mistakes that people make is they start trying to put a verbal command on a behavior before they can even get the dog to do the behavior. You see it all the time. You may have even done it, where we tell the dog down, we're saying down as we're pointing, but the dog doesn't even know what we're trying to get them to do. And we're repeating the command over and over. So instead of doing that, first we want to teach the dog how to do the behavior that we want them to perform. Once we can get a dog to perform the behavior every single time on a physical cue, because that's how they learn initially, through physical communication, then we add the verbal command. And I want to explain this in the beginning, because you're going to notice for a lot of the exercises in the beginning of this course, I'm not going to be using a command. I'm going to save that for later. That's the process that we want to follow. I want the dog to really understand the concept of luring. I want the dog to really understand the reward event and really understand how to follow a leash into these different positions. Then when I have all that down, now I can start adding the command. So if you're watching the course and you're thinking, oh, I'm ready to add the command for this behavior, a good thing to keep in your mind is, if you love it, name it. If you don't love it, don't name it yet. So if I have my dog, let's say, going into the down position, but my dog is still going down a little slow, or maybe a little bit on an angle, I'm not going to name that command yet, because that's not how I want the dog to perform it. When I get the dog dropping quickly to their elbows and they have that very nice Sphinx position, okay, now that's what I like. Now I'm going to put it on a command. And when we put a behavior on a command, the command must come before the physical cue. This is incredibly important. It's known as overshadowing. If we say the command at the exact same time we deliver the physical cue, so if I go sit or down, the dog's not going to learn the verbal command. We have to say the command, then present the physical cue. So I have to say sit, then lift, down, then lure the dog into the down. It has to be a pattern that's predictable to the dog. They have to go, oh, I heard you make this noise, and every time you make this noise, you then show me a behavior to perform. Once I perform that behavior, you reward me. So then the dog goes, oh, once you say sit, I'm just gonna jump into the position and I'm not gonna wait for that physical cue. I'm just going to do it. And once the dog starts doing that, then we know the dog now understands the verbal command. I like to also call this questions and answers. Our commands to our dogs are questions. The physical cue that we use to get them to perform the behavior, that's the answer. So when we have our dog in front of us, we go, hey buddy, do you know what to do when I tell you down? And the dog goes, no, I have no idea what to do when you make that noise. And then we say, here, I'm gonna show you. And then we assist them. But it goes like this, down, then the cue. The dog does the behavior, yes, we mark it, then we follow it up with the reward. So it's command, motivate. Motivate is the physical cue, mark the behavior, then deliver the reward. In addition, it's important to know that when we teach our stays, you can use a verbal stay once we get to that part of the course, but I like to do what's known as the implied stay, meaning if I give a dog a commanded position, they must maintain that position unless I give them a new command. I use my terminal marker or termination marker, which means release plus reward, or I use a release command or a release word that lets the dog know that they are released. I like to call it a release word actually instead of a release command, because a command says you need to do this, but a release word is just telling them, hey, you're released. You can keep hanging out there if you want, but you can now get up. So those are the three ways that we release them from a stay. So if I tell a dog down, that dog is now in a down stay. And because of that, when I start adding commands, I chain a bunch of different commands together pretty quickly, so I'm not having the dog hold a position. Keep in mind, duration often kills motivation. So I might have the dog sit and then go right into the down and then into a stand and then into a sit front, and then I could reward them. Or I am going to reward them after every single command. So I'll tell the dog down, cue them into the position. Once they're in the position, I use the terminal marker and then I reward them. Now for the dogs that I'm training, the terminal marker that I'm going to be using is the word free. Now don't get confused by the dictionary definition. When I tell my dogs free, that means you did the behavior correctly, you are going to receive a reward, and you are released from the position. If I want duration in a position, we can just use verbal praise to let the dog know that they're doing it the right way, and we can follow it up with the rewards. So keep this in mind when you're going through this course. If you want to start adding the commands early because your dog's performing it the way you're happy with, you can go ahead and start doing that, or you can jump to the part of the course where I demonstrate and explain how to do this in more detail.